welcome warmly to Geneva and to the Palais des Nations, our distinguished visitor from the Hellenic Republic, a country we all love and refer to fondly as Greece. Dr. Lefteris Kretsos, who's the Secretary General of Media and Communication. I'd also like to welcome the permanent representative and ambassador of Greece to Geneva, to the United Nations and international institutions, His Excellency Alexandros Alexandris. Welcome to Salle 3. You have a lot of important journalists here. Don't be fooled by the enormity of the room, and this is a good turnout for Salle 3. And of course, we are being webcast by the Palais television, but also I understand the Club Suisse de la Presse is taking care of their webcasting. Dr. Kretsos, I will hand over to Guy Mettan, my good friend and distinguished Swiss journalist and head of the Club Suisse de la Presse, to moderate this press conference. You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmad. It was a pleasure to collaborate with you for organizing this press conference. It's pretty unusual, but I think it's a good thing from time to time to organize such meetings, which permits to Swiss UN press to participate directly to a press conference. So thank you again to Mr. Fauzi for the collaboration. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Dr. Lefteris Kretsos, but before I will ask you to sign our golden book, just a signature here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll ask also Ambassador Alexandris and all the people in the table to sign. And the idea is to give the floor to Mr. Kretsos for 15-20 minutes of a presentation about the current situation in Greece and to raise questions just after. I also thank Effie for, for all the work she did to organize this press meeting. Yeah. So, please.
So, first of all, many thanks for the nice words, the interest you have about Greece. We all know that Greece has captured the attention of the media in the last 5 to 6 years. This is for an unfortunate reason, which it's a reason that has to do with the crisis. And as a new government, we are trying to do our best to put an end into this, because Greece obviously should not be considered as a country that is full of phenomena, pathological phenomena related to a broader economic and political crisis. So the truth is that after the conclusion of the third memorandum agreement, Greece is step by step entering a period of economic and political stability. The current government has a very clear roadmap for the future with specific milestones, including the bank's recapitalization that has already been done. The plan is to implement all the reforms that are included in the third memorandum agreements in order, and when the first review is passed, also to start talking about the debt, and as our European partners and creditors have promised and they have committed to that, to start a broader discussion about debt restructuring and what is going to happen in the future. So basically, I don't want to say too much. It's better to answer questions and see how it's going.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know who will ask the first question. So maybe first question, I will start for... sorry. Who is... Oh, yes, please do. Yeah.
I'm Rakesh from Geneva Press Club. My question is, how is Greece planning to adopt tough austerity measures without disturbing the social cohesion?
Yes. Well, I understand what you mean. I think it's a good question. Because the truth is that the third bailout agreement did not stop this momentum of austerity. And as you all know, Syriza is an anti-austerity agent. Nevertheless, Syriza is also implementing reforms that respect and promote public interest. We're talking about reforms that has to do with the fight against corruption, against clientelism, reforms that bring about justice and restore democracy. And even in the previous months where the negotiations were, let's say, very, very rough and there was no agreement, Syriza's government managed to pass specific legislation to deal with a humanitarian crisis. Syriza government managed to protect the houses, the first residence of its citizens. We also managed to enact a legislation regarding media industry reform, which was necessary. And we've also managed to provide the regulation of the 100 arrears for all those households and businesses that cannot pay back their mortgages. So the second big thing is that people understand that we did our best, and we even reached we did our best, and we had a strong fight. We tried to go to a much more fair debt resolution with our creditors. We had the referendum. We have capital controls. And despite all these, let's say, not so normal conditions for a political life of this country, it seems that the data, as presented by the European Central Bank, indicate that the effect of the capital controls was not so strong. It seems that public revenues have increased. We have a surplus of 714 million euros. And it seems that sometime in 2016, Greece has a big chance to go back to economic recovery and growth. Yes, so in general, we have an agenda that is about social justice. Even in the budget, we managed that was voted by the parliament members on Saturday. There is an increase on social spending, and especially 300 million euros that will be sent to fund the public hospitals. And there are many other reforms that, like a progressive taxation reform that is about to come, and a public administration reform that works in the favor of the public good and ordinary people.
Thank you. Is there another question? Yes, please. From Bloomberg.
Tom Miles from Reuters. When do you expect to legislate the second set of reforms, and do you expect talks with the lenders to be concluded by the end of next week? Thank you.
Sorry, again, the question is?
Do you expect talks with the lenders to be concluded by the end of next week, and when do you expect to legislate the second set of reforms?
Well, so far we have managed to pass most of the prerequisites, we have managed to be successful in most of the milestones of the third agreement, the agreement of 12th of July. There are two big issues. The one that has to do with social security reform, Another big discussion that has to do with debt restructuring that will follow after the conclusion of the first review. What we have done in the social security reform is to abolish the preliminary early schemes of retirement. And with this reform, we have managed to save enough millions. And we want to do that, first of all, because there was a need for rationalization of the pension schemes. And the second thing is to avoid any potential scenario of cutting pensions. And you have to know that in Greece, ordinary pensions have been reduced by, roughly speaking, 40% in the last 6 years. So we don't want to move forward or to continue this path. And I'm pretty sure that international creditors will realize, and our European partners, that austerity is not working. Austerity is not working either for democracy. It's not a democratic way of dealing with economic crisis, but at the same time is not an effective way of dealing with economic problems. Yes, and we try, of course, to conclude all the other reform packs, reforms by the end of 2015.
Okay, thank you. I would also thank Mrs. Valia Kaimaki, who is special advisor to Dr. Kretsos. So please, yes, follow up. Yeah?
I have a question on a different subject, if I may, which is about the refugee situation. I'm interested in the Evros fence, which seems to have been an important part of the evolution of the crisis. And I'm wondering if the government has any plans to restore access to Greece through the fence, or if it's not possible because the Turkish government doesn't want it. What's the status? Because there was some talk about when the fence, I think it was hit by floods and it was effectively open a few months ago, that it might open up, but that doesn't seem to have happened. So can you tell us something about what the deal is with the fence? Thanks.
Well, the truth is that we have almost 1,000% increase in migrants and refugees inflows in Greece since 2014. And my perception is that Europe has really lost a lot of time, valuable time, to deal with the economic crisis because an international problem was considered as a national one. So the frames of the analysis for the Greek problem was strictly a combination of peculiar characteristics of the Greek state. And in Syriza, we always had this view that the Greek debt is not viable, and the austerity is not going to make it more viable or deal with that. So now we have another huge problem, a challenge that is international in nature. So our standpoint is that European Union should work closely with Turkey, and that we have to deal with the refugee problem at a European level to provide international solutions.
If I can just follow up, though, the fence there is blamed for diverting a lot of the refugee flow to the sea, which obviously has caused deaths. So wouldn't it be better to have a managed path for refugees coming across a land border with reception centers where you can process people without them having to take to the sea and dying in the attempt? Thanks.
Yes, well, retention center mainland is a different thing from the sea borders. It takes to, but what remains at stake, and what is the bigger issue at stake here, is to have a European solution that will facilitate relocations for the refugees in order to avoid this humanitarian tragedy that is taking place in the Aegean Sea at this moment. So just trying to figure out solutions in the mainland, with the mainland fences is not going to provide a sustainable solution. And Greece is open to collaboration with Frontex, with other European partners, and I hope that all European countries will be on board on that, because closing borders in one country or just trying to find out petty solutions at one stage, it will not really make a big difference.
Sorry, but if people are dying, then it's a choice for Greece whether they come over the land or come by the sea. I mean, I realize this is a European problem, but for Greece, there's a choice about whether they come on foot or in a boat. And if they go on a boat, they can drown. If they go on foot, they're not going to drown. So why do you, I mean, I get there's a big political issue about Brussels, but what, you know, why is Greece keen, why does Greece not want to reopen that border and manage things on its border? Or are you saying that Brussels has to give you help to do that? Thanks.
So what, are you implying that if we have a different management of the Evros fences and borders, we will manage to deal with the refugee issue? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying it, but when the fence was built, people, the European Commission and people in this town were saying that it would cause a refugee crisis of people going by sea. And that's exactly what happened. And people I've spoken to in the last few months have said the Evros fence was largely to blame for diverting people to take the sea route. And, you know, therefore, it caused deaths.
It's a bit outdated discussion because, as I said earlier, since 2014, in the last 10 months, we have an increase of more than 1,000% of the migrants and refugees in flows. Just to focus on the Evros fence, is, if you allow me to say, is a very false approach because it does not take into account the dynamics of the war in Syria and the inflows dynamics coming from Asia and Africa. Don't forget that there are also significant geopolitical instability in Northern Africa as well. So the problem is really huge. The problem is not just how can I say that, just try to figure out a clever solution in Evros or in Kos or in certain parts. This is a problem that, European partners and Greece, of course, is part of that. We have to look on the real reasons that cause this problem.
Okay, so thanks. Maybe I have a question about another question about your program in Geneva. Maybe you can tell us more. Why are you here, and what is your program here in Geneva? And secondly, second questions about the new geopolitical problem in eastern part of Mediterranean, with the new. It's becoming a pretty dangerous place now. And what is the reaction of Greece to this new? Not quite new, but yes, new challenges there.
So I'm visiting Geneva because we are co-hosting the Secretary for Media and Information in Greece with UNESCO a conference about gender and media. Mm-hmm. In the framework, of course, of this event,
yes, sure.
We are here now, and there will also be some meetings with other UN officers and people here. Now, Greece is a pole of economic and political stability, and our plan is to become a stronger pole of economic and political stability in an area that stability is such a precious commodity. And, but those type of problems demand international solution, and of course it demands a much more in-depth analysis of what really causes war, refugee inflows, and of course political repercussions in the heart of Europe. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Other questions? Please. And relations about with Turkey, because there was this Russian plane shot by because of they said it was coming inside the Turkish borders, but you have also Turkish planes coming inside the Greek area. So there is two double standards, or what are you saying?
Well, I don't want really to comment on that because, it's not. Well, it's a routine actually for what is happening, but it's an unfortunate event. I hope between Russia and Turkey, and I hope that what Greece wants is peace. We want to find out solutions that internationalize the problems, promote a broader European culture of partnership and cooperation. I think we are at a very crucial stage in Europe. And this will be reflected, or it has already been reflected in the results of the elections in France. Syriza remains an anti-austerity agenda. We believe that we have to change, in collaboration with other partners and allies, political allies, I mean, the balance of power, and to promote a culture of social democracy, to promote a culture of building up stronger welfare states and enhancing basic human and political rights.
Okay, thank you. Is there another question? Oh, yes, please.
Hello, I'm Philip Esterhazy, Freely Speaking Interviews. Your government in Greece has been praised by Fidel Castro for having the ability to resist capitalist invasive politics. And I want to know if your government in Greece is having taking any, how could I say, examples from Cuba, or let's say from a country which I know better, which is Brazil, and the previous success of Lula to rebuild your national economic capabilities.
Yes, I've heard this story, and I totally understand why you are telling me this, because Lula is a leader that came out of from the grassroots. He was a union leader. In Brazil also we have a media system that is characterized by a lot of asymmetries, and you can find also construction, owners of construction, big construction companies, to also control and own TV and radio stations. I also, in Brazil, Lula initiated a program of national restructuring, and this is what we want to do. We want to make our productive base stronger, and to promote the touchable assets of this country, and of course the opportunities for investments that this country has in Greece. Our estimates indicate that we will have impressive performance in tourism area, and there are many other areas that of course Greece can be a very attractive place for indirect investments. But I think that Brazil is a different economy. Greece is a different economy. We belong to a European family with a common currency zone. We have different political and economic legacies and different political and economic structures. Nevertheless, there are similarities, but I think it's a bit different case to follow.
Thank you. Other? I don't see. Oh yes, please do.
Betül Yörük from the Turkish News Agency. I'm wondering if, do you have any plans to cooperate with Turkey to stop the flow of refugees into Greece? Do you have any recent plans, or what are your plans? How do you think you will cooperate with Turkey on that?
Yes, we think that Turkey is a very important country, and that you cannot deal with the problem of with the current challenge the refugees and the war and everything without Turkey. So we think that the European Union has to work closer with Turkey in order to establish a program of relocation in order to stop the humanitarian crisis. And at this moment, according to estimates that can be found in the press, there are more than 2 million refugees in Turkey. So this is a very spooky and alarming figure. And so Turkey is a very important pillar in order to find solutions and protect people's lives.
Just to follow up, have you recommended or have you talked to the Turkish government about any concrete proposals you would make, maybe?
What I'm just trying to say is that we don't want to have a bilateral agreement with Turkey because we think that this is a European problem, international problem. We just want Turkey to have, of course, obviously a strong say about the solutions. And that's all I'm saying. I mean, just bilateral agreements and will not really bring about a serious solution to the problem.
Okay. Please, another question. If maybe I have a last question about Germany, because we knew that the relationships between Greece and Germany was very tense during the first semester. How is it now with the new agreement? I think it's becoming better, but how do you see, because Germany is the heavyweight of European Union, how it is now?
The truth is that we have good, strong historical relationships with Germany. Thousands of German tourists come to Greece every year. A lot of Greeks live or study in Germany. It's not obviously a problem of the people, but as I said, the policy making in Europe was extremely slow in dealing with the crisis, and partly this has to do also with the structures of the media. Sometimes certain media outlets promote a kind of, let's say, tension between German and Greek people, and this is obviously unfair. Of course, in Germany, our government had serious issues with Mr. Schäuble's policies, and but this is not strictly a German. We have, let's say, different opinions with all those who believe that austerity is the remedy for the problem. Obviously, Germany and Greece were the two main pillars out of the crisis. Let's say Greece was the loser. We lost 26% of our GDP in the last 5 years. We have a reduction of about 40% in our pensions and wages. We have an unemployment increase, dramatically speaking, which corresponds to an unemployment rate for young people more than 50% now. It used to be higher, and the unemployment rate that reached the level of 30%. In Germany, for example, the unemployment rate was extremely slow, but at the end of the day, ordinary German workers also suffered from this austerity momentum. And if you look on the labor market in Germany, you will realize there are a lot of young people being trapped in precarious jobs, midi jobs, call them as you want. Of course, there are other interesting elements from modern German governance that are very attractive to us, like the remunicipalization of energy, the expansion of the renewable industry through small industry companies that young educated people work there and establish. But this is politics, okay? We strongly believe that it's a matter of balance of power. We have to continue to stay in this momentum. many things have changed. We have a new government in Portugal. Perhaps we'll have a new, more friendly anti-austerity government in Spain pretty soon. Of course, we had the results in France that are worrying for us, and I hope that for many Europeans. So,
okay. So thank you. Thanks again. I don't know if there is last questions. John, are you okay? Yeah. If it is not the case, I think I should thank again
thank you very much.
Dr. Lefteris Kretsos for his answers. I wish you good luck, good stay in Geneva, and hope all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you also to Ambassador Alexandris and to Mrs. Kainaki and to Effie for their support. Yeah.
Thank you.